10:45. Richard Fallon, oh God. Back so soon. Wonder how his holiday went. So, Richard, you're looking suntanned. How was the holiday?
It wasn't actually a holiday.
Oh, well, that's the thing about holidays. They can be very stressful, can't they?
No, it wasn't a holiday, literally. It was a fact-finding mission to southern France to find out about locally devolved government or something.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't realise. How was it?
Have you ever been to southern France?
Well,
Of course, it's very lovely and all that, but what happened was, we, that is, Piers and I...
sorry, just remind me. Piers?
My PR person. How many times do I have to tell you? Anyway, I took him with me, not at taxpayers' expense, I hasten to add, to, make sure I didn't get into any... well, these things can go very badly wrong, as I'm sure you're aware. MPs on champagne junket with Cub Scouts.
Cub Scouts?
Not literally, but that's the sort of thing the press... I mean, there were no children involved at any level. Can I just state that for the record? Anyway, what I was trying to say was... Piers, whom I've now sacked, incidentally, was responsible for a complete cock-up involving aperitifs and a deliberate, in my view, misinterpretation of his role on the part of the press. We were at this sort of soiree thing with lots of local dignitaries, mayors, that sort of thing. Anyway, I was chatting away...
You obviously speak very good French.
God, no, my French is appalling. No, they spoke English. Plus, we had a rather nice young woman who interpreted whenever we reached an impasse, which was rather often, actually. I mean, their English was only marginally better than my French, so when I say chatting, I use the term loosely. Anyway, they brought round these trays of canapés, and I hadn't eaten since breakfast. I was ravenous, so I was in sort of canapé heaven. But I had it under control. Don't worry, I was pacing myself. Anyway, I was just about to pop another one in my mouth when Piers grabbed my arm and hissed in my ear, "Don't eat that. There's a photographer over there." And I thought, crikey, I do know how to eat a canapé with decorum, I was sent away to a rather expensive, albeit sadistic, boarding school in order to acquire just such skills. So I ate the wretched canapé just as a camera flashed, and Piers said, "You stupid..." Well, actually, he used the C word, which I thought was a bit much coming from someone who's essentially an employee. He said, "You stupid blank. You've just been photographed eating foie gras." And really, I had no idea what he was talking about. I mean, it was tiny. It was not much bigger than a postage stamp. It wasn't like I was standing with a whole goose liver hanging out of my entitled mouth, was it?
I do hope not.
Well, take my word for it, it wasn't. But, I don't know. I was completely unaware that they forced entire grain silos down their throats with a sort of reverse vacuum cleaner. Did you know about this?
Well, I had some idea. I wasn't aware of the reverse vacuum cleaner.
No, I was obviously exaggerating for effect there, but the point is, I knew nothing about any of it. Why would I? It's not as if I eat a lot of foie gras. In fact, I've only eaten it 3 times in my whole life. Anyway, I got home, and not only was it in the local paper, local MP in posh goose liver horror, but I was deluged with letters accusing me of animal cruelty, avian murder, poshness. I'm serious. One of them was addressed to Little Lord Fauntleroy of Slaughterhouse. Another one contained a turd. Human, by the look of it, with a postcard signed Mother Goose. I mean, what is the matter with people? Why does everyone have to be so self-righteous and vitriolic about every blessed thing now? Anyway, then, as if things weren't bad enough, the tabloids decided that Piers was actually my boyfriend, which he isn't. I mean, I'm straight, for heaven's sake. There was, as I may have told you, an unfortunate incident when I was at school, but I was extremely lonely, and he promised me a whole Victoria sponge cake, which of course was irresistible to a boy with my appetite. I mean, it wasn't that unpleasant. It was quite affectionate, actually, especially for someone like myself who wasn't entirely sure what affection was. And the cake was delicious. It had buttercream icing, I remember, and homemade raspberry jam. I'd have done it again for another slice of cake. I offered, but he said no thanks. Mr. Jeffries, he was called. I wonder what happened to him.
You never told me this, Richard.
Didn't I? I don't think it damaged me in any way. I mean, do I strike you as a damaged person?
Well, Richard, I think it depends on what you mean by...
I mean, mostly what I remember is the cake. Anyway, the thing is, Piers and I suddenly found ourselves all over the tabloids. I'm astonished you didn't see it. And then he, Piers, produced this girlfriend out of nowhere who swore he was a 5 times a night man, you know, eat your heart out, Tony and Cherie. And of course, I couldn't produce anyone out of anywhere. The last date I had was with that woman whose name I misheard as Labia, and that was a disaster, as you know. I was reduced to begging my wife, my ex-wife, for a sexual character reference, and this is what she came up with. I can't imagine what a young man as handsome as Piers would see in my ex-husband, who is 56 and looks much older, although Richard never showed any interest in men while I was married to him. Now he's on his own, perhaps he thinks any port in a storm. So you can imagine, it's not been a great couple of weeks. There goes that thing in my foot again. Look at it twitching away. It's obviously stress-related. Oh, by the way, I almost forgot. I bought you some candied fruit, very popular in the south of France.
Oh, thank you, Richard, but actually...
I know you're worried about your weight,
No,
so don't eat the whole box. At least not all at once, but not if you want to hang on to your role as television's favourite agony aunt.
Well, I don't think...
It can be such a cruel medium, I know from personal experience. Last time I saw myself on Today in Parliament, I looked like a giant warthog dozing in the back row. Not that you... I mean, I hope you don't think I'm implying in any way that... Incidentally, that was an interesting case you dealt with the other morning, the man who swapped his wife for a car.
It was a little bit more complicated than that, actually.
I didn't see the beginning. What sort of car did he swap her for?
As I said, it wasn't quite as straightforward as that. He didn't literally swap her for a Ferrari.
A Ferrari? God almighty, I'd be lucky if I got a Robin Reliant for my wife.
You don't have a wife, Richard.
I mean, when I did have one. Actually, to be honest, if someone had offered me a clapped-out Ford Fiesta for her, I'd have considered it, shiny, bouncy hair notwithstanding.
This particular case was simply about an unusual divorce settlement. But let's move on, Richard. This is your time. We're here to talk about you.
But trading in your wife for a Ferrari, I know a lot of men who'd
Let's drop it, Richard, shall we?
All right, if you insist.
I do.
OK. Where did I get up to?
I think Piers had produced a girlfriend.
Right. Yes, exactly. And I was left right in it. And here you need to bear in mind that Piers was employed to deal with public relations. So in order to get me out of a hole, i.e. to dispel the notion that I took a toy boy on holiday at taxpayers' expense, Piers found me a girlfriend. And I must say she was absolutely gorgeous. So to begin with, well, for about 5 minutes, it was as if all my Christmases had come at once, and I forgave Piers for the foie gras fandango. She's called Natalia, and I took her to a restaurant or two. You know, I was generally seen around town with her. And actually, this was infinitely more trying than it sounds, because Natalia doesn't speak any English. Well, she does a bit. She can point and say, "Give me, I want, please buy me this bracelet," and "When do we get married?" Because it turns out that Piers had more or less bought her, for a bargain price as it turns out, from a Russian bridal agency. And at this point, I'm afraid I sacked Piers. I mean, he's not only incompetent, he's completely dishonest, and he always had this sneery thing that I hate. Plus, he called me a stupid C-word in public. Anyway, now the problem is I can't seem to get rid of Natalia. I mean, I know I wanted a girlfriend, or at least someone to have sex with, and she seems more than willing to fulfill both those roles, but the thing is, she's actually quite frightening. In certain lights, she's got a sort of wolfish look. Wolfy. She looks wolfy. Do you understand what I mean?
I'm not sure that I do. Are you saying that she literally looks like a wolf, or are you speaking metaphorically?
Literally. She literally looks like a wolf. I mean, she hasn't got a fur or anything, or a tail.
Well, that's good to know.
But she's got weird eyes and pointy little teeth.
Right. When you say you can't get rid of her...
Well, she's sort of stalking me.
Goodness. That must be very worrying for you.
She says she wants to marry me, which is a first for me. Even my wife didn't want to marry me. Not really. I mean, obviously she gave in the end. Anyway, Fortunately, God, I never thought I'd say that, I'm not actually divorced from her, my ex-wife, yet. I've told her this, Natalia, but she doesn't seem to believe me. Honestly, I'm at my wit's end. And the other problem is that apart from looking like a wolf, she also looks like, I mean, I can see this now in the cold light of day, she also looks, not to put too fine a point on it, like a prostitute, because, of course, she is a prostitute. God, I could kill Piers.
When you say she looks like a prostitute...
Well, for a start, she doesn't wear enough clothes, and the clothes she does wear are very small. I mean, you know, I'm an MP, for God's sake, not Peter Stringfellow. She was hanging around outside the flat the other day when one of Toby's teachers turned up to tell me she thought Toby was eating too much. I mean, what? He's eating too much. Who knew? Or did you think it was glandular that he's the size of Mount Kilimanjaro? And after she'd berated me for what she described as encouraging Toby's chaotic eating habits, she said, "There's a very strange blonde woman on your doorstep. She sounds Russian or something, and she asked me to give you this," and she handed me a sort of shoebox, which I opened, and inside it was a turd. The second this month. I mean, what have I done to deserve this? I'm not a bad person, am I? Am I?
No, Richard. Of course you're not.
Every time the post arrives now, Toby says, "God, Dad, I hope it isn't another poo." We have a bit of a laugh about it, but actually it's not funny, is it?
Absolutely not.
I mean, I giggle about it with Toby, but it's not funny. You shouldn't send poo in the post to an elected member of Parliament, or anyone, really. Well, it's not on, is it? It's actually quite hurtful. Especially when you feel like a piece of poo in the first place.
Who?
Me. I feel like a piece of merd.
Right.
A miserable and lonely death. They said that about Steve Biko. You probably don't remember him. He was a South African political prisoner. Anyway, I worry it's what might happen to me. I mean, not trussed up by security police in the back of a van. More festering quietly and obscurely in a care home run by psychopaths.
I'm afraid that's all we have time for today, Richard.
Oh, I was just, never mind.
Just what?
Nothing. I'll just take a tissue, may I?
Of course.
Thank you. See you on Friday. Okay. Bye. I'll just take another tissue. Thank you.